Digimon. Digital monsters. Honestly, I never really saw that classic feud many talk about. I grew up with both Digimon and Pokemon in my life as they were introduced to the West, and many like to speak of the divide the series could create between people and really childish rivalries. Most I knew really just simply did not care, or at least they didn't see as an issue worth discussing. In a sense, Pokemon won out the longevity of the Western appeal. And yes, this isn't a Pokemon vs. Digimon rivalry discussion, but it's kind of hard to bring up a Digimon video game without it popping up in my mind, or for many minds. Especially since, to fans of both, like myself, many will say that Digimon wins out in the TV shows and Pokemon wins out in the game department. It's a rule of thumb that I've been a subscriber to for a very long time, and it stands as a judging point for my scrutiny even more than you might imagine. I mean, with a significant new Digimon game making its way westward in a very long time, it really is an important thing to consider for me, and I'm sure it is for many others who have always compared the two. Maybe it's unfair, but its conception is not easily just left at the door. The game itself found itself released in Japan for the PlayStation Vita in 2015, and was ported to PS4 for a release alongside the Vita version in North America and Europe in early 2016. The PS4 port was largely a compromise, as it is Japanese-only audio to get a Western release in the first place. It was a result from significant fan petitions that pushed the game's creative leads to convince the publisher, Bandai Namco, to take a chance on the Western release after many Digimon titles had ignored Western shores since it had lost significant mainstream popularity in that region. But is the game, Digimon Story Sleuth, worth all the risk and effort? Is it worthy of stepping out of the shadow of the Pokemon games franchises? Sleuth is a party-based dungeon-crawling JRPG. As is often the case with such a title, the player forms groups of Digimon to battle enemies with. In this case, the same potential numbers on the other side. Attacks in Digimon hold elements and attributes to determine weaknesses applied during each attack. Between the attribute triangle and the elements, the damage bonuses and reductions are significant enough to be a driving force of strategy. At the same time, the battle works on an active turn system. By this, I mean the attack order is determined by speed, and big enough speed differences can result even in multiple attacks for every one the enemy holds. Once again, it finds its way as being a key strategic consideration. To engage in battles, the player traverses sets of digitally themed dungeons. Random encounters are present, and simple puzzles define each area. The player also has a set of skills called hacking skills that can do things like turn them invisible, copy and paste data, and manipulate that encounter rate. There are a decent number of clever skills in this set, but it's unfortunate that they never used in a clever way for the dungeon puzzles. The most important part of the experience has to be Digivolution. It is certainly a challenge to tackle the system in a unique and effective way. The creature raising section of the JRPGs have always had many entries since it was popularized in the 90s. So how does Sleuth fare? I think it stands wonderfully. In a sense, the Digivolution system is treated like a big class system. Moving up and down the levels of Digimon and the vast diverging trees of development routes means that the system is incredibly flexible. A given Digimon could, theoretically, find itself as any other Digimon with a little footwork. Combine this flexibility with a large party and you start to have lots of fun mixing and matching with these odd sort of classes. The only real problem I can find is that the best of best Digimon are locked behind endgame content. For a system so flexible, it's off-putting at best. With this unique take on class systems for the game, battles often find themselves as a result of preparation. They will, in most cases, simply come down to the party structure and simple execution of an underlying strategy. In the end, they're fun, but they're not really the best outlet if you're looking for on-the-fly strategizing and that sort of JRPG gameplay. But to note, the Digimon are the complete recipient of growth. Outside of party memory, which is just how much Digimon you can hold, there really isn't a method to enhance party strength via the player character's often skin-deep growth. Instead, you can find growth in alternative systems. There's the Digifarm, which acts as an alternative way to pad Digimon stats, investigate for new side quests, and scavenge for item drops. You can also increase your Sleuth level, but it honestly never struck me as much more than a gauge for how much you've completed, in sense a completionist gauge. the Digifarm is an excellent example of how pre-battle preparation is its focus. In a sense, this can make the game's difficulty an enigma. If you delve yourself into the system too much, then you'll inevitably be overpowered, because in order to do all this stuff, then there's a lot of grinding and such, which isn't that bad in its own right, but you can get to that point. If you ignore it entirely, then the difficulty spikes implanted in the game will be more akin to a wall, just because of how the difficulty is structured with several jumps at certain points in the game. Now, the important part is that it's fun to tinker. There are certainly some issues with the integration across the board and stuff like the difficulty, but I never got bored of the system, and that says a lot. Hey, did you hear about the big event going on in Eden? Oh, you know Eden, the virtual reality social website where consciousness is uploaded into a digital avatar. Just pick your name, a gender, and you're good to start doing whatever. From hanging out to business meetings, Eden is the hot new place for all your virtual reality needs. And really, that's where your story starts, as you join a group of online chat room members in a promotional offering in a virtual reality service called Eden. Soon enough, things go awry as you are lured into an anonymous trap that forcibly uploads hacker software onto your account, and you are introduced by a veteran hacker to the tool of the hacking trade, otherwise known as Digimon. And so this VR world and the digital world find its crossover, with Digimon being characterized as top-of-the-line hacking software. With your new friendly neighborhood Digimon on hand, you begin your journey to investigate the dangerous true nature of Eden, the links to Digimon, and the dangerous scheming underlying all the threads. While it may not appear so at first, the connection to Digimon and Digimon lore is quite pronounced. It takes a little while to truly weave the threads of the mystery together, but the story tries its hardest for the story to be a Digimon story. Honestly, the greatest intrigue of the plot comes from the Digimon connections. Not that it's unexpected, but the mysteries and threads from Eden and the real world prove to be skin deep without them. At the same time, the concept of being an apprentice detective with the mantle of cyber sleuth, name drop, lets these connections develop properly and naturally. And I have to note, the side quests are also enhanced by this detective motif. With the quirkiness of Digimon theming, the game is scattered with silly, intriguing, and sometimes touching mysteries for you to uncover as the cyber sleuth yourself. And that touch of quirkiness doesn't stop there, it's infused into the cast as well, and may well be best encapsulated by your ever-present mentor, Kyoko. Her obsession with Fado coffee, the ramblings on Japanese history and other academic ideas, her general fashion sense, and, well, her disposition go a long way to tell you who's in charge. It doesn't end there. You also have the attention-obsessed Nokia outwardly rejecting all that attention. You have the ever-hungry, yet skinny and such Yuko. You also have Arata, who himself probably knows he's trying too hard, but he goes with it anyways. And really, it's fun. You can feel the Digimon influence, especially when it comes to their character arcs. Most don't try to be too complex, as the game's themes take on the blunt, simple sort of themes that a strong, simple journey can thrive on. It's not an inherently better path, but it always kept reminding me of what Digimon was when it was an anime. Now, there are certainly times where it can get quite awkward. I'm not sure if it's translation, the original writing, or what, but there really are quite a few moments that just don't flow. Whether it's the characters back and forth not connecting so well, or just jokes falling flat on their face, there are a good number of moments that just don't work. Again, it's not the most pronounced problem, but the number of times over the course of the several dozen hours or more of gameplay can leave them lingering in your mind. The story overall can be held back a bit by those inconsistent moments of writing. The moment-to-moment is really the problem when you get down to what problems there are, but the overall quirkiness, sense of mystery, the lore-based plot does well to outweigh the negatives by a good margin. Let's start with the voice acting. Yeah, it's only Japanese. It's disappointing, but it is what it is. The voice cast really isn't all that special either, as no one performance really felt like the voice cast was a justification for that move. I know it wasn't justification when it comes down to it, but it's just sad to miss out on a dub for performances that sound so standard. But I really got over it quite quickly. Musically, Cyber Sleuth is much better and employs a upbeat sound with an emphasis on jazz and techno-style musics. Given the combination of noir and digital themes for a world of Digimon investigation stories, well, it really does fit the scene. The soundtrack does an excellent job of keeping moments to moments interesting and engaging despite all the other issues there. With the less dynamic stylings of the animation's general storytelling style, the musical driving force is quite the boon to the game. They're the sort of tracks that, well, bar a few exceptions like the title theme, which is amazing, won't really stick with you, but they do tend to jump back to memory in the moment. Notably, the soundtrack is apparently written by the composer for the Danganronpa series, and it's hard to say that I can really deny the similarities in music structure and execution. Not that it's bad, as Danganronpa's musical tracks have always been on point. Speaking of taking inspiration from outside sources, the art in the game really feels very much like a Digimon anime. Shocking, right? Well, one way or another, the choice of art style in 3D captures the Digimon wonderfully. In fact, I'd be hard-pressed to say that they don't live up to the original art of the creatures. Given this was originally a Vita game, the depiction of the art style made its way into HD excellently. Few details here and there show off low-quality assets that didn't get improved for the port, but they seem to be a minority. Now, I'm less enthralled, which isn't saying much, I suppose, by the other aspects of the visuals, for example, the humans. Animations for Digimon in the battle are smooth and, in some cases, iconic, but the character animations throughout the story can be stilted and really don't meld as well despite the anime art style. They're still pretty and well above some of the alternatives out there, but the Digimon set a pretty high bar. With the visual novel-style conversations throughout, you can also feel the budget being trickled across the plot, those animations of characters being a good example. If you're used to this sort of storytelling style in RPGs and JRPGs, then it probably won't bother you. But The Last of Us, it is not. Digimon Story Sleuth is an interesting game if you want to speak solely of entertainment factor. The story has its ups, downs, a variety of potential appeal, but much of my joy came down to being really what you see in the title drop, the Digimon. The game really feels like a Digimon story, and while it takes a while to build up to that, the preceding plot points are plenty interesting, but the nostalgic feeling of the show often takes hold as the most interesting. Often you'll have to tide yourself over with the Digimon gameplay itself when it doesn't. With a system based around moving up and down the Digivolution levels of Digimon with much abandon, I often found myself having a lot of fun building my team around the digital creatures. The Sleuth loves to be a game for the tinkerer. This of course means there will be plenty of grinding as you pick and choose your team members over what will likely be multiple iterations. The game does go out of its way to make grinding easier if you pursue the options, but it's not exactly intuitive. Basic methods include revisiting some dungeons, encounter rate experience given to all active party members, and sets of items and abilities that increase XP gain. The problem with these, in almost every capacity, is how hidden, out of plain sight, or down the road these issues are. Encounter rates are manipulable, but you can only force or eliminate encounters at the highest levels. Your active party is limited until your party member catches up with your intentions. And the ability that doubles XP is never really spoken of and held by two uniquely unattractive Digimon. And the XP items, well, those are rare drops that are in events, the Digifarm stuff, outside of battle. While the endgame can really be good to messing around with all these most entertaining aspects of the game, it really doesn't show its promise until it's too late for some. Same with the aforementioned world tone. This is without mentioning the moment-to-moment experience. Storytelling can be a tad awkward at times, but there's a lot of charm hidden throughout the best and worst scenes throughout the story. Dungeons are not anything special either, and love to give you a maze of teleporters and with plenty of dead ends and maze-driven puzzles. The eventual ability to just end all the encounters is welcomed by that point in the game. In some senses it might sound like I'm really lashing out at the game in a negative fashion. I do like it, I really do, but the overall product certainly has a net positive. But those negatives can be just so blatantly pinned on the sleeve and obvious to everyone, while the positives may need an extended look when all is said and done. Digimon Story Sleuth is a very good game. For Digimon fans, most will be delighted, especially those who yearn for a game in the series on par with Pokemon. In fact, I'd actually argue that the Digimon game offers the same sort of advantages that the Digimon anime always had over the Pokemon outings. The focus on characters, the cool factor of the series, and the unique amalgamation of the real and fantasy into the setting, and so much more. Of course, a lot of the appeal comes from it being, well, Digimon. The story feels like a Digimon story, and the appeal of the Digivolution system is based around actually liking the creatures to begin with. The art is distinctly anime like Digimon has always been, and I'd be hard-pressed to see the game as an exit from the recommended status. And I would label it as recommended as such because of its generally limited appeal because of those reasons. If you like extensive class systems and are interested in a unique take on the concept and don't mind Digimon, you'll probably like this JRPG. If you're a Digimon fan, you'll probably like this game too. It's a good game. It's a good quality JRPG, made for an odd combination of JRPG and Digimon fans, but it works, and it really is nice seeing Digimon take the step out into the light. And now, recommendations. This might sound weird, but let's say Bravely Default. It has one of the more unique, I guess it's not a unique take on class systems, but it's one of the more pronounced and significant class systems you see in JRPGs as of late, so that series in general. I'd recommend it if you like that sort of tinkering with the setup of classes and whatnot. And I'd also suggest, no, not Pokemon, Jade Cocoon 2. You probably have not heard of this game. It's a PS2 game, and it probably doesn't have, you probably won't have a good way to play it, but I feel as though I should suggest it. In that, I feel it has fusion in it. The ability to fuse your it's a creature game, and you can fuse monsters in it, and in a sense, I feel as though it has a very sort of similar appeal, where essentially you're taking these specific creatures and you're raising them up into a variety of forms. It's not as flexible as Digimon, but I feel it has a closer appeal to the Digimon method of the creature raising genre of JRPGs than Pokemon does, which is odd because I actually think those two are very different. But that's all I have for today. I'll see you all later. Sorry, this is going a bit late. I can tell that this is going to be a longer one just because of what I've written, how long it's taken to record all this. Hopefully this goes up soon after I finish recording it. Might take a little bit. See you all next time. Drive safely.